Welcome, everyone. I call the February 5th, 2025 Planning Commission meeting to order. The main purposes of tonight's meeting are to conduct study sessions on the downtown Subarea plan, the 2025 Docket request update, and the sign code amendment project. These three items will be considered separately. Before we move on to the agenda items, I'd like to acknowledge our hybrid meeting format. The City of Bothell is providing the option to attend this meeting either in person or remotely via Zoom, and tonight, given conditions, I think some did take advantage of that opportunity. For those participating via Zoom, the chat and question functions are not available for use to ensure compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. We have a public comment agenda item at the beginning of the meeting. Please limit all comments to 3 minutes. Please note that the City of Bothell does not tolerate verbal harassment. Remember this during your comments. Public comment will be allowed both in person and via Zoom. Those wishing to comment via Zoom were asked to submit an online form by 3 p.m. today. People wishing to submit written comments were also asked to submit those comments by 3 p.m. And we did receive one written comment that was distributed to the commissioners. Email was encouraged as well and will be acknowledged. Those in attendance may also make comments and have been asked to indicate their desire to comment on the sign-in sheets. The Imagine Bothell notice, the city website, and tonight's agenda all provided information to the public for providing comments. Video of this meeting will be streamed live, as well as recorded and available for later viewing on the city's YouTube channel. Call-in number was provided on the meeting agenda for members of the public who wish to call in by phone to listen live to the meeting. For our phone-in callers, during staff presentations, staff will make every effort to specify which materials they are referencing so that everyone may follow along. At this point, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the attendance of the commissioners. Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner Westerbeck is absent and excused. Commissioner Lever.
Here.
Commissioner Robson.
Here.
Commissioner Sills.
Here.
And Commissioner Gustafson.
Here. Thank you.
In addition, staff in attendance include Community Development Director Greenspan, Deputy Community Development Director Gates, Eric Jazuski, Senior Planner, Community Development, and Megan Rigney, Planner, Community Development. And lastly, before we begin, I'd like to reiterate some meeting guidelines. For all attendees, please speak clearly and pause frequently. Please state your name each time before speaking. Mute your microphone when not speaking. If you are also streaming the live video feed, please turn off the sound as there is a delay. For commissioners, at specific breaks in the presentation, I'll be calling on members who wish to speak or ask a question. And given several remote commissioners, I'll try to keep track on screen, but help me out. And if you want to speak, please indicate this by raising your hand. I will call on you as I see you, and this will avoid the problem of having two people speaking at the same time. Identify yourself before you ask a question, make a motion, second a motion, or participate in debate. And please mute your microphone when not speaking. The first item on the agenda is public comment. The city has accepted visitor comment in writing. As I indicated, we did receive a comment, as well as accepted sign-up sheets for those who wish to speak at tonight's meeting. Those speaking will have 3 minutes. Written comments submitted to staff no later than 3 p.m. were forwarded to all commissioners and are part of the record. And I know we have one individual who would like to speak, so you can step up to the podium and turn on your microphone, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Testing. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is Josh Friedman, and I work alongside City Office REIT, which is a real estate investment trust based in Vancouver, BC. In Bothell, City Office owns 3 low-scale commercial office buildings and their surface parking lots on the 10-acre site that is located at 2300 through 2530 223rd Street Southeast. About 2/3 of this 10-acre site is impervious surface parking. City Office seeks review of a targeted site-specific amendment to the comp plan to help Bothell legalize more multifamily housing for workers and families and preserve the city's tax revenues. I'm hoping to share first why we've requested a change for this land. Second, why this didn't come up in the 2024 process, and third, why this is important for the city now. First, City Office purchased the site in 2019. Right now, it is fully leased to one tenant, Seattle Genetics, also known as CGen. CGen was acquired by Pfizer in December of 2023. Before this acquisition, we would not have needed to consider a comp plan amendment, which is why you didn't see us during the 2024 process. Pfizer is a global company, and we don't know what their plans are for this land or for CGen. City Office enjoys a very positive and long-term relationship with CGen and doesn't know of any immediate changes. However, our region's ongoing office market vulnerabilities, together with this acquisition, compel us to explore future options in case a change happens suddenly. A recent example of this happened last year in Everett when CGen halted a $350 million construction project just 3 months after the Pfizer acquisition. So the acquisition of this office tenant means that vast changes could come at any time, and that's why we're asking you to consider legalizing housing in this location. The option for future multifamily use is critical for 3 reasons. First, if CGen did not renew their lease or vacated early, Bothell would have 3 empty low-density buildings and hundreds of surface parking stalls that are not in the same demand that they were when they were built. This site wouldn't just be locked in as sprawl, it would be locked in as vacant sprawl. If we waited until that point to start the comp plan process and mapping change, the site could remain unnecessarily vacant for years or more instead of being made available for the housing we need and kept at a substantial level to help with the city's tax revenues. We've shared more detail in the letter submitted on Monday, which I hope you've had a chance to skim, and I will be here this evening in case you have any substantive questions for me as you discuss the application with staff. Respectfully, we ask to be given the chance for docketing and for the Commission to use its expertise and process to see if this application could meet the city's standard for amending the future land use map. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Anyone online? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the January 15th minutes?
Commissioner Lever moves to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Lever. Commissioner
Second,
Robson.
Commissioner Robson.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion around the January 15th minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the January 15th minutes?
Aye.
The January 15th minutes are approved. So we'll move on to our next item, the Downtown Subarea Plan. And we have presenting this for us, Eric.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Eric Jazuski, Senior Long-Range Planner in the city's Community Development Department. I don't think I've met much of the Commission yet, so I'll share a bit about my relevant professional experience before being hired by the city in September. As a senior planner at Pierce Transit, I prepared the agency's transit development plan and managed the countywide on-demand microtransit service. At Pierce County Planning and Public Works, between 2018 and 2022, I led many projects, including dozens of code updates relating to infill lots, middle housing, flexible neighborhood design standards, affordable housing, dark sky protection, and signs. Just to note, we were quite ahead of the state on many of those issues, so I'm very happy about that. I also spent 4.5 years of my early career with the city of San Francisco, both the planning department and the transportation department. Finishing as an associate planner there. So I'm here today on behalf of the city of Bothell. I'll be shepherding the downtown plan update project, and I'm presenting on that today, specifically the preliminary vision, goals, and scope. Also, something fun maybe, I'm going to do something a little different for today's study session. Once we get to the slides pertaining to all the content, all the text, which is a lot to read, I'll stop on each slide and we can have an in-depth discussion about each one, so it's not an overload. Okay, let's dive in. For today's study session, we're seeking your input and feedback on the Downtown Subarea Plan, specifically the plan's vision, goals, and scope. No action is required today. I already started with the text here. Some background on the current downtown plan, which was adopted in 2009 and amended periodically. The purpose of the plan was to orchestrate private and public investments, regulate land use and development, plan city actions in support of growth and revitalization. The plan was amended between 2011 through 2024, including for affordable housing. The plan's vision statement is wide-ranging. It aims to make downtown a place to go and be the community's meeting place. Accordingly, it seeks to enhance the essential publicness of the downtown environment, connect downtown to the Sammamish River, as well as the college campuses, maintain a distinctive town center for Bothell, enhance multimodal mobility and connections, protect the quality of life of residential neighborhoods, and promote sustainable, environmentally responsible development. So, simple as that. The more detailed content of the downtown plan is shown on the slide. Overall, really, I would say the 2009 plan was focused on revitalizing and redeveloping the underinvested downtown area. You're welcome to read the full current downtown plan by visiting bothellwa.gov. Okay, what is the sub-area? The downtown sub-area is a geographic unit that spans from SR 522 Bend to QFC and Rite Aid, and from the Sammamish River to the UW campus. The sub-area land use map is on the slide here, with colors representing certain planned areas known as zones or districts. The center of downtown is signified by the red, orange, and yellow colors, which you can see what those mean on the slide. So, as people that live or work or play in Bothell know, a lot has changed in downtown since 2009 under the sub-area plan. Some major changes include the Bothell-Everett Multi-Way Boulevard, a transformative and regionally significant project. That's sort of the part that runs along City Hall here. The realignment of SR 522 down by the park at Bothell Landing. The new City Hall that we are sitting in here. The redevelopment of North Shore School District properties. New high-density residential and mixed-use development, most obviously. And really creating a foundation for upcoming and expanding transit service investments, primarily high-capacity bus rapid transit service in downtown. City, regional, and state partners have invested nearly $200 million since 2009 in public improvements. Since then, about 19 new high-density residential and mixed-use developments have been built, and a few more may be in the pipeline. And about 148 new businesses have opened in downtown since 2009. I hope this comes up for everyone. Some satellite view. This is an image from 2009. Many of those changes can be seen here. I tried to highlight kind of the areas that saw big changes since then, redevelopment. So this is the before, and then I'm going to go to the after. Okay, sorry, it's a different shade. You might be able to see the change using the recent images. One of the big ones is the North Shore School District properties on the upper left, the redevelopment there, new road grid and everything. The park at Bothell Landing got some extra space from the 522 realignment. Obviously, the realignment and the Bothell Way improvement are shown here. City Hall block, of course, as I mentioned. The middle bottom one is the Merck apartments, which were recently completed. Middle top is the Addition apartments, that little smaller rectangle, and then the square is the Murado Bothell apartments, and then 104 apartments. Of course, many of these are mixed use and they have businesses and commercial spaces as well. And then I just wanted to highlight the Bothell dorms over there. I thought that was a big change, not necessarily as a result of the plan, but very pertinent to the downtown. So some of this change can be quantified. We're looking at the area's residential and commercial data on the left, which I pulled from the U.S. Census Bureau and Washington Department of Revenue. Just a note about this data, the population and housing is based on census tracts, which you may or may not know includes sort of certain areas that you don't, we aren't focused on. So these numbers can represent a little bit of Lower Maywood, a little bit up West Hill, and things like that. So not exact. And the commercial data, taxable retail sales are for the section of Bothell in King County. Again, that's an even bigger geography, so a grain of salt. But you can see there's been significant population and housing growth in these areas. Staff estimates that downtown's portion of that population growth is about 3,000 people, significant increase since 2009. For the commercial data, again, it's larger than just downtown, but I think it's safe to assume that a significant chunk of that retail sales increase is in downtown. Put the map on the right. This is from Urban 3, showing a lot of that, the existing value, both of retail sales and of property values. So I think you can see just how important downtown is economically. So why would we update the downtown plan? You see here the Imagine Bothell Comprehensive Plan, which is adopted in December. We will need to make sure the downtown area can accommodate the targeted growth that the comprehensive plan includes. So that would be 1,894 more residential housing units and about 730,000 commercial square feet. Another reason for the update, learn from those last 14 to 15 years and prepare for downtown's next phase. Leverage the high capacity transit service coming in the future. Continue to maximize return on those city's public investments, the $200 million. Engage downtown residents, workers, and businesses, especially those that may be new and weren't involved in the original plan. And finally, an opportunity to incorporate the city's priorities related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can see the full project schedule here. Phase 1, project preparation. We'll gather background information and prepare community profiles and plan community engagement. Phase 2 is the conditions analysis, really preparing information about the area that will provide information to the public at engagement. Again, what's changed, what's out there. Phase 3, public outreach, which is visioning and scoping. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're preparing for that. Again, what we present to the public. Phase 4, plan drafting and impact analysis. Pretty straightforward. Phase 5, public outreach. This is reviewing the draft plan that has been put together based on all the different stakeholders. Phase 6, plan refinement. Phase 7, plan adoption and closeout. And Phase 8, plan monitoring and reporting. Sort of off the timeline here, that should be shifted to like a beginning of 2028, looking for plan adoption, or 2027, plan adoption in the end of 2026. We will also check in regularly with Planning Commission and Council on the progress of this project. And just a note that the schedule is preliminary and may be subject to change based on available resources, project and engagement needs. Today's study session is to focus or to discuss really part of Phase 1, the preliminary plan, vision, goals, and scope, which provide a starting point for the community-driven discussion in Phase 3. The draft community engagement strategy, the other piece of this Phase 1 you'll see, will be presented by my colleague Megan Rigney at the February 19th Planning Commission meeting. So look forward to that. So as I move into the preliminary vision, goals, and scope, I just want to preface, staff is sort of throwing something at the wall here. We've done some educated research and some of our good ideas. But really, we just are trying to start the discussion with Planning Commission and Council. Ultimately, I think really it's about the public, and they'll have the opportunity to define what this plan is about. And then, depending on what comes out of community engagement, we'll sort of get the okay, hopefully, from Planning Commission and City Council, and we'll move forward with drafting the plan, getting necessary consultants and things like that. So I know it's a lot. I'm just kind of throwing out some prompting questions as we go into this next slide. So really high level, what are your priorities for the future of downtown? And how might the current plan be updated to reflect those priorities? Are there areas where you think downtown should change course? Are there major downtown specific issues that have arisen since 2009 and which should be addressed? Okay, first big text slide here. I'll just give commissioners some time to read through this. Really the stuff that is under discussion today is on the right. Our sort of preliminary staff proposed vision, equity consideration, and goals. So as you're finishing up reading, does this vision on the right reflect the city's values in your opinion? Yeah, well, that's the first question, or anything else that this brings up for the commissioners.
All right, let's pause and let the commissioners comment as they wish. Any commissioner comments?
When you say right, you
Hi, this is Commissioner Lever. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the work, and I really appreciate the thorough presentation and the memo that was provided to us. My initial reaction around the goals, I would like to see us really starting like with a verb, like really understanding, are we building the community center? When we talk about the activities, like what exactly are we aiming to do so that we can really be specific on the action? And then when it comes to the equity focus, given the current political climate, I would really like to unpack what we mean by equity lens in a way that they don't just become charging words, but in fact, that we can really connect the equity principles to the goals that we have. So perhaps like being more specific on the goals with action verbs, and then the equity focus, just trying to use terminology that can be understood and necessarily rejected as we roll this out to the rest of the community. Thank you.
Okay, great feedback. Thank you, Commissioner. On equity, this is my second question for you. How do you think it can best be incorporated into the plan update process or the plan itself? Any thoughts?
Okay. Commissioner Robson, no?
Hello?
Others, or Commissioner Lever?
Yes, hello. So one of the things that we've been discussing in the Planning Commission is really making sure that we are mindful about the different modes of communication with the community. Like, how are we getting to the different populations that we're trying to outreach? So when it comes to the surveys that I know that come forward through other projects, I will really caution this plan not to be going to the same places for the same ask, but really trying to leverage the collaboration that can happen within the city of Bothell with the multiple projects where you are seeking feedback, and then really understanding how this plan can have more like targeted approach for the communities that we haven't heard. Because we talked about underrepresented populations, and we're not always very clear in terms of who are we talking about. Because sometimes where we just talk about this concept and we're not really naming who we need to hear from as part of our community, then we get lost with concepts.
Okay. Commissioner Robson?
Thank you. I'd also really just like to second Commissioner Lebar's points here. I think it's really important. We can just take that word equity right out of there. And that idea of starting with verbs is super important. And I think focusing specifically on the inclusion or intentionally incorporating all voices of community, including seniors, immigrants, disability, and even marginalized can be like a trigger word. But we could say something at this point. We could just say something like historically marginalized. We'd have to play with it, but something along those lines where we say including the voices of, as opposed to, which is equity focus. That verb also really including the voices of, I think it does really center more specifically on what we're trying to do, as opposed to just putting a liberal sheen on everything and be like, no, this is what we want to do. So yeah, I just really appreciated that comment from Commissioner Lebar.
Other commissioners? So did I hear you say the 19th we'll hear more on the outreach?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I would just kind of to cue that up. I did some work in outreach a long time ago, and one of the more challenging groups to get to are the multifamily housing residents, for whatever reason. So be really interested in hearing how that group, because it's a big group downtown, is going to be involved in this. Commissioner Sills.
Yeah, Commissioner Sills here. I think that just had two comments. I actually really like the first point from the current plan on the left, give the community a place to go in the heart of the city. I just think it's nice and simple and and I like that it's saying like, that should appeal to all sorts of people and all sorts of interests and backgrounds. And so maybe it can be improved, but like maybe not totally discarding that one. And then for goal 2, I agree with that. I wonder if there's a way to also say like how we can support the current businesses or, the current small businesses and local businesses we have that have, created this thriving downtown, because I just feel like you can't really add by subtracting. So making sure that we are thinking of, preserving also what we like and don't want to see go away. And kind of along those lines, if there's a way that we can reach out to some of those places that have popped up since 2009 and get a better idea of like what's working, what's not, just so that can sort of inform how we roll this out.
Other commissioner comments?
This is Commissioner Jones.
Yes, Commissioner Jones. Your audio is real choppy, Commissioner Jones. I'm sorry, we can't hear what you're saying. Sorry. Yeah, that's unfortunate. There will be another opportunity, I guess, the next meeting to talk more about the plan, but we couldn't understand anything. One of the perils of online meetings. Other comments? Commissioner Robson.
Thank you. Are we ready to move on to the left side of the page, or are we still focused on the right side of the page?
So the left side of the page is what's in the current plan. So that's for comparison.
Okay, thank you.
then-
Thank you for that clarification. In those, along those lines, I really do like the idea, as Commissioner Sills did, of the place to go in the heart of the city. And it does seem like there's a distinct difference between the goals that we're stating on, it's almost like the vision, right? The vision and goals on the proposed preliminary and the one on the left side of the screen, which is so much more specific. And so can you speak to a little bit about the differences? Something like link to the downtown core to the Sammamish River Park at Bothell Landing. That's something I very much support and should be a goal, but it doesn't really seem to fit under vision and goals. Will some of these goals on the left-hand side be included in later in this document?
How should I say it? So the proposed preliminary goals were significantly informed and in the spirit of the current plan goals. They are definitely more vague. So I think that will be a great discussion item for should the specifics of the current plan goals stay there, or perhaps these can be more within the scope where we kind of get into the nitty-gritty details. Okay. So to answer your question directly, I haven't checked if every single one is in the scope, but we absolutely can do that in response. So.
Okay.
Commissioner Lever.
Thank you. I echo that. And I also want to perhaps offer thinking about SMART goals and then making sure that we know how we're going to be measuring the success of the plan. I understand and appreciate the having like a broad or more like an aspirational goal, but I really think that with the sometimes like limited resources that we might have and or the buy-in that we may need to really try to get from different audiences or interest groups, it might be best if we could be really specific about what is it that we're aiming to do so that we can be focused as everything around us always moves and shifts. So thinking about SMART goals will be a great opportunity to fine-tune the goals.
Okay. I'm generally a proponent of using fewer words and editing things, but I do think something was lost in goal 1. Now, if depending on how it's written, if later in the document more specificity is brought into it, I would not be as concerned by it, but it does seem like there's a bit lost moving from the current goal to the proposed goal. And second thing I'll say is the more I look at them, the more I agree with the comment about verbs. I think they're helpful to give more impact. Other commissioners? Seeing no further comments, if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate all that feedback. We'll definitely get working on addressing that in this proposal here. So that's the high level. Moving on to the scope specifics or preliminary possible scope specifics. These are fully provided in attachment 1 of your memo today. I'll also say both the breadth and the depth of the scope that may be covered in the update will be subject to available time and resources. And so with that said, and going into the scope, there's a lot of items. There's 50 items, so just mentally and physically prepare yourself for that. We're going to go through them slowly and again, have a discussion on each one. So hopefully that works for everyone. Okay, the first category here is public space and parks. And again, I'll let you read through this. Okay, pretty brief. I can also say, this plan will have a focus area of public space opportunities. We know that's really important to Planning Commission, City Council, and the community. We're actually going to dive into that idea towards the end of this presentation. But on this slide, I'd love to hear commissioners' thoughts.
Commissioners? Commissioner Robson?
Thank you. When you refer to third places as community gathering spaces, can you talk just a little bit how that incorporates with public space and parks? Just so often when I think of third places, I think of them as private businesses, I guess. Yeah, I think of the coffee house and Friends. And so I think that's why I'm a little surprised to see it under public spaces and parks, and maybe you can just elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good point. It's certainly not typically public. I think we're, using the lower P public here. Sure. But yeah, it is sort of thought of as, private or nonprofit locations. I think the connection between that and open space or exterior public space, I think is great. They can be connected and feed off of each other for sure. So.
If I could just do a follow. So how do you see this plan working with those private spaces, or how would we facilitate that as part of our goal if these are, businesses?
It's a good question. I currently do not have the answer to it. I think, the reason that I'm here is is this something we should pull the string on, the thread on? So we will go into that later on if our decision makers wish to. So.
Okay, something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Sills, then Commissioner Lever.
Commissioner Sills, I like it. I think this is right, and this is important as we think, especially because I've seen in other places where they've slowly taken away space for this sort of thing. And I think it'll be increasingly important as more people come, and we'll just need more spaces for folks to go. So I think this is the right list.
Commissioner Lever.
Hello, Commissioner Lever here. So I agree. I like it. My only comment is around the sort of climate change and how adaptable we are being. This might be covering another area, but as I think about some of the things that we're seeing happening across the country, I wonder if when we think about parks and public space, how can we design to be more resilient and to be more adaptable to the climate changes or unfortunately disasters that we're seeing? And again, that might be part of another area, but I think this is very much a space where we also need to think about emergency management and then will we have the capacity to serve the community within these public spaces, and how are we using the space to make us more resilient to climate? Thank you.
Other commissioners? I'm going to speak to number 2, the privately provided public space. Mm-hmm. And we did a lot of work around that in the commission, a couple of years ago now. It's been a little while. Yeah, it was before COVID, so that was a long time ago. Ages. I'd be interested in maybe understanding how well that's working. We kind of tossed out an idea of maybe walking around and looking at some of those spaces. We did a middle housing walking tour at one point. I think it would be useful to look at what some of those privately provided public spaces are. I know there was discussion about having some consistency around signage at those spaces to make it clear that they are public, because it is not always clear. And when some of those areas are fenced, they may not be real welcoming, even if they are public spaces. So I think we started working on that, and it feels like there's a little more to be done to bring that really to its full potential. Mr. Robson?
If I'm not mistaken, there was a whole rollout plan that was sort of foiled by COVID. Yeah, so it'd be nice to investigate how we can pick that up, even if it just means just putting them on a website or something to start with.
I mean, I've been, typically when we visit a place, you look online for walking tours or things to do, and I don't know that I want to get the wording properly, the privately provided public space is identified. If I could look somewhere and see where they all are, I'm not sure that that's available. So
Yeah, there was a map that was being developed, and that may have been around the time where COVID hit. So that's definitely something we can consider how to incorporate in, the public, private maps as well, and then sort of this in between space of the privately provided spaces,
Yeah.
where they are and how to find them. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Other comments? Oh, Sarah,
Hi.
yes.
Hi, Commissioner Gustafson here. Thanks for this presentation. I really like the image of pulling on a string and seeing what comes up. My comment dovetails with Chair Kiernan's. One thing that I love about Bothell is our spirit of experimentation, trying new things. Maybe they work, maybe they work in a different way than what we thought. And how can we emphasize that spirit of experimentation, both trying new things and then doing the work to see how they play out. And I think a perfect example of that would be the privately owned public spaces. So I'd like to see maybe a philosophy of change and pilot programs and how we use that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Other commissioners? All right, let's proceed.
Well, we're not done with it yet. I'm sorry. One of the things that I thought might be of interest to the commission is talking about, Main Street closure and the options and alternatives for that. So that's one of the things that's kind of supposed in this general text. Also, looking at other places where, there might be good opportunities for shared or slow streets downtown, maybe other temporary closures to pilot, potentially full pedestrianization. And then also, a temporary activation through events and programming opportunities. So with that extra little detail, anyone's welcome to comment or question me.
Further commissioner comments or questions? Seeing none, let's proceed.
Okay. Everyone's done with that one. Sounds good. Okay, so here we have the building, land use, and housing items. This is the first half. So feel free to take a look through. Okay, I think that's enough time.
Commissioner comments or questions? Commissioner Lever and then Commissioner Sills.
Hi, my only comment is around, maybe it's kind of more like a question. If it would be possible to incorporate here the importance of building really strong public and private collaboration to have the necessary supporting services for the housing that we're planning to build that will be on the lower end of the spectrum. So perhaps, again, this might not go in here and you don't have to answer the question, but I really hope that we can be very intentional about making sure that if we're building additional affordable housing or low-income housing, that we also have secured the funding to provide the necessary wraparound services that will be needed to support the community. Thank you.
Commissioner Sills?
Yeah, for item 11, are we saying that we would get rid of the park and ride or somehow redevelop it into something else? Is that what that means?
So potentially, as you may or may not be aware, the high capacity bus rapid transit lines are shifting away from that facility and onto 185th, I believe, as the main transit street. So, the utility of that property may become less so for parking given the distance. But again, we're not necessarily saying we're going to redevelop it. It's just kind of let's look at that question, the possibility. Is it something that should be retained as a park and ride? That's in the realm of possibility. So just looking at
Okay.
that stuff.
I was not aware. Yeah, I was not aware of the rapid transit in another area. So that is good to know. Thanks.
Other comments? I also react, oh, Commissioner Gustafson, please.
Hi, Sarah Gustafson here. I would echo the comments before that either starting everything with a noun or with a verb would really highlight the power of these great goals that we have seen. Thanks for putting them together.
Thank you. Little choppy on the audio. I could make out what you said, but it was a little challenging. So I also pause over the park and ride, and I understand it's moving further away, but I know that the past proposal for a parking garage is no longer on the table, and a whole lot of us live beyond what's walking distance to these transit lines. I'm 2 miles up the hill, and walking home at night after an event would be challenging. And even though that park and ride is a little further than it used to be, it's a whole lot closer than my house. So I think to have transit operational, you need to get people there. So I would really pause over that. There's been a lot of work done about co-locating things, using the space for other things in addition to parking rather than instead of parking. And I think that would be good. But to lose any parking near those transit lines, I think would make it challenging to use transit, quite frankly. So I think we need to look carefully at that. And since I've said the P word, might as well talk a little bit more about, I don't know where you're going to address parking in here. Is that coming up later? Should
Yes.
I hold? Okay, then I'll hold. I'll hold on that. But as far as housing, be detailed, it's not quite here. I know a little while ago, we did see a proposal for the micro apartments, different types of housing. Has that proceeded? Are we looking at a different range of housing here?
Christian might know that history, or Jason.
I think it predated Christian, and it.
In what capacity did the planning commission, was it through like a potential code amendment for micro apartments?
Well, there was a land use action over down on Beardsley, on the north side of Beardsley towards, and if you go there, you can still see the sign. It's out there. So we recommended for approval, and I believe it was approved. And it would just provide a different type of housing, theoretically more affordable because it's much smaller. I wondered whether that proceeded or what happened with that.
There have been code amendments over the past couple of years when we looked at the downtown transition affordable housing overlay that expanded opportunities for micro apartments and housing opportunities in that transition area. And I think we can certainly look at how, when we update the downtown sub area, whether there are ways to amplify that, expand where those opportunities are, maybe even look at it through the lens of some flexible parking requirements as well.
But perhaps Mr. Robson can help me on this. But we had a specific proposal, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was a specific proposal. It sounds like, but I think we're the only ones
Yeah.
here right
Yeah,
now
it
that would have been
predates.
here for that, because it was several years ago. It may have gotten dropped, or I don't know,
Yeah.
but you're not crazy. There was a proposal for that specifically to be built by a specific company. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious because we talk affordability, and that was one very specific thing in the downtown area. And we said yes, and we never heard about it again. So,
Yep.
okay. All right, with that.
Thank you. Yeah, great feedback, commissioners. Just about the sort of housing related items, I do want to mention that the city is soon to start with the housing affordability plan. And I think that potentially could look at micro apartments, and I know they're definitely looking at parking. And, you know, obviously there's lots of overlap between housing and downtown. So, you know, we'll be working together on our plans and try to figure out, you know, what goes where. But yeah, absolutely something we can look at. So thank you for all those thoughts.
All right, thank you.
Okay. As a planner, of course, there's more stuff under building, land use, and housing. So, there's the number 12. I mentioned that. Attainable housing options for college students near campus. Maybe some regulatory streamlining, reducing barriers. I think more fine-grained development patterns is something that I've heard about as being desired in downtown.
Oh, Commissioner Upson.
Can you go into that a little bit more? What would fine-grained mean?
I would say in terms of at least appearance, I know that the current downtown plan has standards for sort of facade changes and, I can't remember, coming in and out, sort of making it look like multiple structures. I think it would be interesting to look at maybe some ways to encourage actual smaller structures. Yeah, so.
Just along those lines, I would like to see smaller, I guess lots is the way to describe it, getting to be these really big, almost warehouse-like structures that are very commonly put in, really make it difficult for small business owners to attain a place for their businesses. And so I would really appreciate if you guys could look into how we might be able to chop some of these big blocks into very small ones, independently owned, as opposed, I know that corporations can go in there and buy themselves up a big old building, but it would be a neat thing to see if we could try to get that in there.
Other commissioners? Seeing none?
Okay,
Proceed.
thank you. Maybe something that I'd like to hear also on this, if anyone wishes to speak on it, is, are you supportive of looking at the current rules and maybe there's some things to cut out or things to add in? Does anyone have any thoughts on that, or what new development should be subject to or should be not subject to sort of meet the city goals?
Commissioners?
And maybe I can speak what I mean here. Would that be helpful?
Sure.
So some of the things that could be looked at are looking at the mix of uses, especially non-residential uses, and encouraging more of that, not to the detriment of housing, of course. Looking at sort of consolidating all the different districts and the zoning overlays and simplifying that a little bit. Looking at height limits, buffers, setbacks, lot coverage, ground floor retail encouragement, window transparency, on and on. So,
Commissioners? Commissioner Sills?
Yeah, Commissioner Sills, I would be in favor of revisiting any of those sorts of things if it means that we could get more of this happening. So obviously it should be discussed, but I would say I'm in favor of that in general.
Other commissioner comments? Commissioner Robson?
Thank you. Just from my point of view, things like window transparency and setbacks, the only answer I have is more low-income housing. Like you asked me how transparent's a window, and my response is low-income housing. And I feel like I don't want to get lost in the nitty-gritty. It can take up a lot of time, and generally, the Planning Commission hasn't been asked things like that before, so I would almost be like, whatever you guys say is fine. As long as we can, as long as small businesses, as long as we can support small businesses and increase housing for, our community builders, that's where I'm at.
Commissioner Lever?
Yes, so my only comment around that will be, again, and I don't know I don't know if it goes in this section, because I know we are tackling in other areas around the resiliency given the climate change, and then making sure that we are building for the future, knowing that the present looks like what it looks like. So I just want to sort of like leave Commissioner Jones' article that she shared with the commission around not just mitigating like climate change, the things that are really kind of impacting our climate, but more so adapting to it. So as we're designing and building, really thinking of how can we do it in a way that can really protect us for fires or the earthquakes, knowing that, or floods, knowing that we have no control over that, but we do see that things are just truly unprecedented in that space. So that might be my only comment or addition.
So I think we should always be open to streamlining, but I also think we should be cautious about it. When we look at eliminating something, we need to look at why it's there. Because it's real easy to get the example of something that caused someone a problem and throw out, the baby with the bathwater, as it were. So yes, let's look at it. Let's eliminate barriers which don't make any sense. But one person's barrier which doesn't make any sense is another person's desire for, let's just say, less density or open space. Sunlight. We've heard about sunlight. So, well, let's be careful about that. Certainly look at it. Certainly be open and willing to make changes, but with our eyes open about potential effects. And I'd also say, as an aside, it's unfortunate that the commissioner with the most experience in this area was unable to make it tonight. So I have no doubt you will be hearing some specific comments later that we haven't thought of.
Absolutely. Mr. Chair, I appreciate sort of how you're talking about the nuance of that. And I think, my question was maybe a little too specific for now, but really I think the goal today is what should we open the discussion on, right? And is it this, is it that? Maybe not that, I don't know. But I appreciate sort of how the commissioner has worded this, just something we're going to talk to the community about, see what sticks or not, so.
And I'd be inclined to start it with, what are we trying to achieve? We're trying to achieve more low-income housing. We're trying to achieve economic vitality. We're trying to achieve the sense of community. Are there barriers which are slowing that down, and why are those barriers there? And if they don't serve if the cost of having those barriers in place is greater than the benefit, then let's get rid of them. But I'd want to look at both sides of those things.
Absolutely.
Others?
Okay.
Commissioner Gustafson. And then Commissioner
Hi,
Sills.
Hi, Sarah Gustafson here, and this is a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to highlight one really interesting thing that Commissioner Robson said. Instead of using the words, supporting housing for our local workforce, she used the words supporting housing for community builders. And that opens up so many imaginative possibilities. So instead of referring to people just in a very transactional sense, we're acknowledging the contributions that people make beyond their jobs. And I love it. And I hope we use it throughout our publications whenever it's appropriate. So thank you, Commissioner Robson.
Well, Commissioner Robson.
I'm so sorry. I just got a text from Commissioner Lebar. She's in the audience and needs to be moved back up to a panelist.
Ah, she got bumped.
That's it.
Commissioner Sills.
Yeah, Commissioner Sills, I hear you on unintended consequences and that sort of thing. And I also would hate to be in like a state of paralysis. I think we should be trying all sorts of things with the idea that if something isn't working or doesn't have the intended effect or has a negative consequence, we can always change. And that's sort of what's neat about the dynamism of the local level. So just encourage us to obviously make educated decisions, but we also, I think, shouldn't be doing nothing or not doing enough. Because, I think a lot of people just get caught up in, the weighing consequences that might not materialize. So I would be in favor of really kind of experimenting or taking some risk with that idea that we can always change if it's not working, and we should be open to that and honest. So that's my thought with that.
Well, paralysis of analysis is real. Any luck getting Commissioner Lever back on?
So I'm not sure why she's not showing up as a panelist.
Yeah, I'm back. I just had to change devices. I'm back. Thank you.
Okay, good. Good to see you, or
Thank
good
you.
to know you're there. We don't see you, but.
Yes, thank you.
All right, I think we're ready to proceed.
Okay. Yeah, great feedback. Definitely got some work to do for sure here. Appreciate it. Okay, many people's favorite topic, transportation and parking. So some of the things that we could open for discussion are listed here. And go ahead and read through. Okay, and I also want to add a little content too, just so there's lots of information out there. One of the things that we heard from City Council is, looking at transportation-related effects on downtown adjacent neighborhoods is important to this. There's also many plans or efforts that Public Works is preparing related to micromobility, bicycling, TDM, curb management, transportation impacts based on person trip analysis. So those could be part of this number 17 or 18. And then looking at the number 18, travel by transit, walking, biking. Some of the things that could be in the mix are establishing through block or through lot pedestrian and bike connections for new development. Also potentially frequent transit network speed and reliability measures and improvements. Okay.
Commissioner comments? I know this is a favorite. Commissioner Robson.
Can you just clarify what it means, dignity in transportation, for all modes of transportation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of a new area, at least in the planner world, because we've always looked at, what are the requirements in the transportation planning world, I should say. Always looking at what are the requirements, what's the ADA standards, things like that. And of course, central to transportation planning is safety for everyone, right? Something that I think is lacking in many areas is people traveling by other modes and having dignity doing that. And maybe an example you can have in your mind is walking on a very narrow sidewalk next to a high-speed road and a chain link fence next to you and no lighting. So sort of broadening our consideration of those things and looking at, all the modes, not just for requirements and safety, but for comfort.
Commissioner Robson.
I also, obviously our community is very interested in Sammamish River Trail and the trails. Is that another area in the planning, or is that something we would add to this list? Anyway, I just want to be sure it's somewhere on the goals that particularly connecting the downtown sub-area to the trails has been coming up over the course of years. It would just be so valuable for everybody involved, the college and the businesses. So,
Commissioner Sills.
Commissioner Sills, for 21, does that include like safe areas for drop off? Because I think, you've got Uber and Lyft and different taxis and ways that people might be using cars but not necessarily needing to park, or like shuttle vans, vans that are coming from like a senior center in Seattle or something like that. Like just thinking about other ways, because I've been to other places where there've not been really good, safe places to either be dropped off or picked up. So I think that should be taken into account. And like, you know, I'll get a little crazy, but someday we might have self-driving vehicles doing that. And so just like how we're thinking about planning for the future, and how, you know, that might line up. So I don't know if that's item 21 or 17, but just kind of like thinking about that as well, because sometimes people might be traveling by car, but not necessarily are the driver.
May I respond to that?
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Sills. So definitely that's an issue on our radar. There is something that I mentioned around number 17, which is including or aligning with the Department of Public Works projects, and one of their efforts are around curb management. I know our Director of Public Works is here, so he can hear you. And I could say with regard to loading, let's say off street, you know, that's certainly something that we can include in the scope here.
Other comments? Parking. I think this has been said many times in the commission. To make progress in parking, we need parking enforcement. So I think there needs to be a plan there. It's widely known throughout Bothell that 2-hour parking is not enforced, and people leave vehicles for long times. Where there is parking within some of these multifamily buildings, people don't use it, or because they have to pay for it for one, and because there's no price in using the public parking for two. So we've got a public resource being used and a privately developed resource being underutilized. I'm speculating there. I don't know what the use is of those garages. I'd be interested if there has been an inventory of how those spaces are used. And I don't know if that's in the planning somewhere. I know there's been a requirement for those spaces. Are they sitting vacant? And if they are, is that a resource that could be used as needed?
Yeah, we've definitely talked about parking enforcement. I will say that it's not listed here because it's something that's on, I believe, in the council vision, or it's something that they have asked the city to work on. So we'll be monitoring that effort. And you know, obviously it affects many areas of this, so I appreciate that comment. Mr. Chair, also, I almost forgot to mention, number 21, area-wide parking. That's, I think, exactly what you were talking about with the King County Metro lot. So, you know, this is another possibility for that property, for sure. So.
Yeah, certainly if you look at night, it's empty. Yeah. I don't know what the utilization is during rush anymore, during the day. Mm-hmm. It used to be full all the time. Now, I know times are different, but... Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, other comments, or shall we move on?
Okay. All right, climate and environment. I know commissioners were interested in this. I will say, you know, there are significant efforts, including the comprehensive plan, which addressed many aspects of climate, not only mitigation, but also adaptation. So we can certainly recognize that in the plan. There's also City's Climate Action Plan, which is currently in development by our team. The Urban Forest Management Plan, also in development. And you know, certainly within the downtown plan, we can look at incentives for green building, climate-proof building, things like that. So,
comments? All right, let's proceed.
Okay. Economic development and future investments. So I'm not sure if I talk about it in a future slide, but we have this in here recognizing that downtown has been underproducing commercial non-residential space based on the comprehensive plan targets. So the downtown plan gives us an opportunity to look at, well, how can we address that? And again, of course, we want housing, but we also need some commercial activity. You know, they feed on each other, support the city, support the economy. So just some ideas out there and open to discussion with the Planning Commission.
Commissioner Gustafson.
Hi, Sarah Gustafson here. This is a really interesting topic. I never really thought that, consider that downtown needs more commercial jobs. I might simply rephrase it as develop strategies to bolster the downtown economy and meet employment goals through non-construction and or commercially oriented means. Simply because I looked at non-development based strategies and I was a little stumped as to what it meant.
Sorry, that's planner speak. And I hear you.
Okay, thank you. But yeah, I think it's a great point. Thank you.
Okay, other comments? Seeing
Hi, this is Commissioner Lever. Hello, I'm sorry. I'm on the move. That's what I did. Raise my hand, but I guess I have a question around some of the reasons. If you could just speak on the reasons why there was that underdevelopment, or perhaps some of the challenges that businesses are experiencing in the downtown area, that would help you really think about some of the things that might be missing around like what is needed. I don't know if you can speak on that. Like what are some of the challenges that our businesses are experiencing right now?
You know, I can't knowledgeably speak to that. I don't know if our director or deputy director can.
I think that is something that when we do our community engagement process, we can ask those types of questions. I can also circle back with the city manager's office, who's been managing our economic vitality plan. A survey was conducted, not specific to downtown, but we did get quite a response from downtown merchants. We may be able to suss out what some of the challenges are for maintaining and operating existing businesses. And there may have been some information too about what it's like to start up a business downtown.
Thank you.
And I hope that, you know, the city's economic vitality plan, I believe there's a draft out there, you know, it will go a significant way towards, you know, raising these issues. So.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. On to design. This is an area that, again, is quite the headliner in the downtown plan. It had a very specific vision. I mentioned about having kind of a fine-grained appearance. There's essentially a whole form-based code in the downtown regulations. So one of the things is, you know, again, looking at how that's been working and maybe making updates to that. Are there other things that we should be focusing on in design like listed here? So.
Commissioner questions or comments?
Commissioner Robson, could you just clarify number 34, what that means exactly?
Yep, I tried to reword it so it was better, but I know it's still confusing. Yes, absolutely. So, and this is maybe a little wonky for this presentation, but sort of one of the things that has been a challenge, I understand, with the very specific design standards of the downtown is it's been giving the city and developers an issue with, well, where exactly can we put utilities in here, right? Like there's very limited space to work off of, and the downtown plan is so focused on sort of the frontage and the sidewalk and the landscaping and all that. So it's like leaves no space left for these, is my understanding, so.
Well, and one of the specifics I heard long ago in my previous life is when you look at things like recycling and solid waste in the mixed-use residential commercial, where are you going to put those bins? Mm-hmm. You know, and how do you get the trucks in to get them? So that something that wasn't anticipated a number of years ago. I'm not sure how things have progressed, but That's an example.
Yeah.
Other questions, comments? All right.
Okay.
Moving on.
Historic and cultural resources. Something, of course, that the downtown has. I understand the city will be conducting a survey, sort of a inventory of historic and cultural resources citywide, including the historical districts, buildings, and other resources. So something that we can, try to factor into the plan, jump off of maybe in the plan. And then what that won't be addressing is, programs to help preserve and enhance those resources. So something that we can bring up for discussion here.
Comments?
Hello, this is Commissioner Lever over here. I have a sort of a follow-up comment or not a follow-up comment. We had one of the tribe representatives invite us to really learn more about the ways in which we really honor ancestor lands here. And I don't know if this is where we need to really make sure that we address that in terms of highlighting the partnership that we have with the different tribes, and then what does that work look like and how their input is incorporated and or honored in this plan.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. Good comments. Last one of the scope. These are just kind of didn't really fit in a category. You'll see some things mentioned by commissioners, public-private partnership opportunities that can apply to many different things. Some minor stuff, looking at existing conditions, mentioned that. Part of the diversity, equity, inclusion, including anti-displacement analysis and strategies into the plan as, recognizing things are changing. The college integration, I'll let you go through the list.
Commissioner comments? Commissioner Robson?
I'm really excited to see number 39, the UW Cascadia College integration with downtown. I think that, talking with UW Bothell and Cascadia College are such a great resource environmentally, and maybe coming up with plans on how we can work together would go together with the public-private partnership opportunities. Even coordinating the transition between the trail, the college, and downtown. I think they will be like a really, really great partner, and coming up with a goal that specifically states that, reaching out or partnering with them, I think would really emphasize how valuable they can be in this process.
Other commissioners? I'd second Commissioner Robson's comment. When you visit other places with universities tend to be more vital than others. It just brings a certain something to the place. And even on this slide alone, you've got two items relating to UW, Bothell, Cascadia College, and there were some others through there. So I think really recognizing that and making that a strong link is very important. And when we talk about vitality downtown, there are a lot of people that are attending those two institutions that can bring real vitality. So that's a resource that we really should nurture. Others? All right, we got through your list.
Got through it. Just kind of a closing comment, talking about UW Bothell, Cascadia College. I think one of the really cross-cutting topics here is what about that area between downtown and the college, right? Like we talked about the boundaries. So, right now that area is a very specific, mostly single family area and zone. So, hitting the housing topic, maybe there's some opportunities for student housing there. Again, we're trying to connect them, not just in the shape of a street, but people and activities. So I think that's something that we'll absolutely address here.
Great. And going back to my prior comment about the micro apartments, that was some of the discussion there, that would provide that sort of housing there. So,
Absolutely.
all right, other closing comments from commissioners? Seeing none.
Okay. Thank you
Does that
all.
complete
So,
your presentation?
not quite.
Oh, okay. Got through that list. We can pause.
I know. A little less time-consuming part. And this maybe just thoughts to think about. If you would like to speak on any of these questions, that would be appreciated as well. Of course, I'm going to go through this recording and make a lot of changes to all this based on the feedback. So that's just what I got.
So additional thoughts? Seeing none.
Hi, this is Commissioner Lever over here. So again, thank you so much for the very comprehensive presentation. I really appreciate it and all the work that's behind it. I think I just want to really stress the importance of making sure that in the plan, given the current climate and some of the things that we know about how unfortunately we are so polarized right now, making sure that we don't use words that are not, that are charged with kind of a rejection right away, but the word can be very clear when we talk about diversity and inclusion and equity and principles that we embedded in the plan and that we're very specific so that we don't create confusion, knowing that we definitely want to make sure this is an inclusive plan and then all our efforts are aimed to serve everyone in the community without necessarily getting in the language jargon. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lever. Other? No? Well, with that, thank you for your presentation.
Oh, there's more, Chair. I'm sorry.
I thought you said.
More time, if you would grant me some more time.
Give me a signal when you're done, and then I'll thank you.
This is a pause, okay. All right, the next, we talked a little bit about public spaces. I think this is an area that has a lot of interest in being addressed in the plan update. Of course, we'll see with the public, but I kind of wanted to give you a little preview, some, brainstorming or to start some thinking on this of some research we did. So did a review of many different sort of on-street public spaces as, as a potential opportunity for somewhere downtown. Based on that research, we found about 3 different typologies or types of on-street public space. You have one, which is essentially a standard street, and you can okay, I also want to mention, so there's kind of another part here. There's another 2 factors related, which is the vehicle access, which we'll see listed under there, as well as how these places are designed, and you can use temporary treatments, such as, a traffic blockade, some signage, lawn chairs, whatever. Or permanent treatments, with bollards and actual a fountain or something, for example. So yeah, that's kind of the typology, and we see type 1 as having several different offshoots. You can of course have no closure, which is again a straight up street. Occasional closure. This would be maybe for events or festivals or something. And then a temporary closure as well for maybe a longer term basis or a pilot or something. You also have shared slow streets. In the Netherlands, they call them woner or places for living. And these can be characterized by no vehicle closure or occasional closure or temporary closure. Essentially, these are places like the image you see on the right. Cars can go there, but there's signals that they should go a little more slowly and people are comfortable walking across that public space. Finally, something that is an option as well, full pedestrianization, and these kind of presuppose a temporary or permanent vehicle closure. And again, all these 3 can be designated using temporary elements or permanent elements. So that's the end of all of the content. We just got some nice pictures to look at now. So, of course, we have Main Street. Let me skip to my notes. This is 101st Avenue Northeast and 102nd Avenue Northeast, for those that don't know. I'd characterize it as a shared street, and it has a temporary closure using temporary elements. Next, we have Festival Street. Again, something very familiar, but just for those that don't know, 101st Avenue Northeast, roughly between 185th Street and Main Street. As can be shown here, it's sort of, well, maybe you can't see it with all the people, but it is a street with pedestrian accommodations, but it experiences occasional vehicle closure using temporary elements for events like this. Summer nights. Going outside the city, we have another great example of an on-street public space, City of Kirkland's Park Lane. You can see this is sort of designed as a shared street where people feel like they are comfortable walking in the middle. And it does experience occasional closure using temporary elements for, again, certain festivals or the like. Vancouver's Butte Rops Plaza, this is a concept because it's under construction. They're going fully pedestrianized there. You can see there's actually a nice bike facility through it as well. And what they're constructing is a permanent closure using permanent elements. Yep. Okay. Leavenworth, also a familiar place, standard street. It is permanently closed to my research. They do have temporary elements up now, but I believe they are planning for or potentially going forward with permanent elements, bollards and physical art installations, things like that. Leavenworth, or I'm sorry, Walla Walla. They have Walla Walla Plaza, a really neat example. It's fully pedestrianized, an old street there. Again, permanent closure, permanent elements there you can see. There's a fountain and stuff like that. Okay, Arvada, this will be a similar approach to as Bothell's Main Street. They do have temporary closures there as well, something similar from COVID. And finally, a fully pedestrianized typology, Burlington, Vermont's Church Street Marketplace. And again, they have a permanent closure with permanent elements. So something interesting that will be part of the public engagement process and spurring people's thoughts about the future of some of downtown's streets. All right. Almost done, Mr. Chair. So once the Planning Commission has the opportunity to review both these items, the draft engagement strategy and the vision scope that we're presenting today, we'll also conduct similar study sessions with City Council around March. After that, staff will prepare some of the other elements to proceed into public engagement. We'll also, I think I mentioned before, but the community engagement strategy will be brought to Planning Commission in a few weeks. Again, I've said it a few times, but I think it just needs to be emphasized. All the information or the vision, goals, and scope presented to you, this is just a start, something for people to read and go with, start the discussion, pull the thread. So we really hope that with our robust and diverse and inclusive community engagement, that this will be largely shaped by the community. So.
Thank you, Senior Planner Jazuski, and apologize for perhaps seeming to rush you. I missed a few cues there, but as your first presentation to the Commission, I think you did a great job, and we look forward to hearing more from you on this. Mm-hmm. If there are not any further comments, I think we'll move to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next item is a 2025 docket request.
Yeah, so while Megan heads up here, I do want to say, the downtown plan, there's so many interwoven pieces. Not only the previously completed comprehensive plan, but we've got, you know, the pros plan that's underway. So the Park at Bothell Landing, how you know, parks will incorporate into that, and then we have housing action plan, climate action plan. The good thing is staff coordinate internally within community development on all of those plans, as well as with other departments. So there'll be a lot of information coming at you for the next several months to years. But with that, I'll introduce Megan. Megan Rigney is one of our new planners as well. She's going to go through the next two items on the agenda tonight: the docket request and then sign code. So,
Welcome. We look forward to hearing from you. We're paused for a moment for a little technical work to get the presentation up.
yeah, while this is pulled up, so the singular docket item request, private comprehensive plan request was received. So that's what we'll run through. I know in the past there's been, you know, occasionally multiple requests that come through Planning Commission, but wanted to get your initial take on it, and have a discussion with the council. So.
Recording in progress.
We can take a 5-minute break if you need.
I think we're good.
Good? Okay.
We're good.
Not a problem.
Okay.
All right, there we are.
Okay. Thank you for your patience. But yeah, so this is my first time presenting and meeting you all. So I'm Megan, and I'll be working with Eric on the downtown Subarea plan, and I'll actually be coming back on the 19th to present the community engagement plan.
You might move the mic a little closer.
Okay.
I'm not sure how well it's coming over the.
Okay. But for tonight, I'm presenting just two quick items. The first is the docket request update. So we received an application on October 25th, which was before the October 31st deadline for the 2024 comp plan, to change a property from employment / low to mixed use / employment. And the applicant argues that this allows housing development while maintaining employment use. And the public comment period tonight, the applicant spoke on behalf of the project too. So we evaluated this request and we considered that the Canyon Park Subarea plan was written and adopted in 2020. And we did analysis that allowed employment zoning to preserve economic growth. We also just did the 2024 Imagine Bothell Comprehensive Plan, which reaffirmed our employment analyses, as well as this area actually falls within a shoreline designation and critical area. If you go to the next slide. So these maps are a little bit small, but hopefully you can see that the parcel that we're talking about is in the yellow. So it's 2300. And on the left is a shoreline designation and critical area map. And below, directly south, is the urban conservancy area. And then the blue marker around that is the buffer. And so there's 100 feet buffer for new development, according to BMC 1360. And so that actually impedes into the parcel by 70 feet and would hinder the redevelopment of that parcel. And then also the zoning map is to the right. And I apologize, it's a little bit grainy, but hopefully you can see that there's employment low where the parcel is, and then to the south is mixed use. It's important to note that that land where the wetland is, if that was publicly owned, we would designate that as open space because it's almost impossible to develop there. But it's privately owned, and so that's why it's not designated as open space.
Yeah, I just want to add just briefly. So it's very interesting how our zoning, the recent zoning carry forward. So the RAC, we added that mixed use employment purple after the comprehensive plan. We didn't go into any analysis over the urban conservancy shoreline designation. So the really fascinating piece with urban conservancy is that it doesn't align with a mixed use zone. So even if something is zoned mixed use in this purple, the urban conservancy is the more restrictive standard that has to be followed and would preclude anything that is out of alignment with that shoreline designation. The shoreline designations that are red off to the left, on the left image, the high intensity, if it were designated high intensity, then yes, that would be something that would accommodate mixed use development, multifamily, commercial, and a series of others. So it's kind of, it's an interesting layering with that critical area that's there, that potential future shoreline master program update or review would need to sort of spotlight this and any number of other spaces that have zoning that's inconsistent with what the shoreline designation standard is. So although it might have zoning adjacent to this site that's mixed use, it really is out of alignment with that urban conservancy shoreline designation that's beneath it as well. So you have to have both of them align perfectly to make sure that it does work for a certain type of project. So whether it's high intensity, residential, urban conservancy ideally would align with a park recreation or a park open space sort of zoning. But that would require a zoning amendment, which we're not proposing that on that, obviously. But as Megan was saying, if it were a park property, then the city would likely just say, well, let's rezone it to parks open space because that's all that could really be there is open space, given the shoreline designation.
Commissioner Robinson here. So what do you need from us?
So we are asking, we're just we're giving a presentation on our analysis, but actually our staff recommendation is to deny the proposed amendment. So we as staff conducted analysis and we're asking you to deny the applicant.
Commissioner Sills?
Commissioner Sills, as far as redeveloping it as a park, so why wouldn't the city offer to buy it if that was the goal?
I mean, that's something that you know is something for the Parks Department to consider, and but it's not the zone we're talking about. Yes, we're just trying to provide some background about the surrounding zoning that is adjacent to this site. The complexity to redesignate, albeit one parcel, recently wrapping up the comprehensive plan with the employment targets, the housing targets, it would require some reevaluation of what that would take. So it's not the straightforward just redesignated to allow for this employment low to shift to a mixed use, allowing residential. We would have to take into consideration what that implication would be with this site, or cumulatively if other adjustments were made. With Canyon Park recently being amended in 2020, as well as it's on our future 2026-27 horizon.
Okay, so that's it. All right, Commissioner comments, discussion? So Commissioner Sills and then Commissioner Lever.
Could you speak on the mitigating factors to the negative impact of not rezoning it if the current tenant were to in fact vacate and then we had this empty park? Can you kind of like walk us through of kind of the reasons why we would not think about those consequences?
Yeah, if we look to rezone the property from employment low, which was part of the 2020 Canyon Park update, and maintained through the comprehensive plan, we would need to go back into transportation analysis, the employment and housing analysis for this area, how that impacts or could impact our jobs targets and our housing targets. What would that do? As well as incorporate potential capital facilities alignment, what that impact would be, and it being one site, yes, but what is the cumulative impact? What could happen in the future with other adjustments, where we'd rather have that analysis completed when we look at the future Canyon Park update, where we can holistically evaluate that whole area for future redevelopment in a long-term evaluation.
Commissioner Sills?
Commissioner Sills, I sort of forgot my question as you were saying that, but I don't know. I'm a little lost about this whole thing. Like, obviously it would have a cascading effect, but by changing the proposed zoning, we're not actually making anything happen. It just might happen. And I think realistically, it is, they make a solid case for that. The demand for the space just doesn't seem to be there. And I know that impacts our job targets and everything, but I just like looking at what our region is going through in terms of how much space we need for these sorts of things, versus like the huge crazy demand we have for housing, it doesn't seem like an unreasonable request to me. So, I mean, I'm willing to hear a little bit more about that. And I know it can change things and everything has a cause and effect, but I think it seems like a reasonable ask. And, you know, I know that it said we have the Canyon Park sub area plan tentatively scheduled for revision update in 2027. That's not that far away, but like I think that also reflects like there could be a lot of changes to come, and it probably would be more along these lines. So I think we should be more open to this proposal, but happy to hear other input from other commissioners.
Okay. Commissioner Gustafson?
Sarah Gustafson here. I second Commissioner Sill's suggestion that we look into this. I myself am not convinced. I do remember that during the 2020 Canyon Park Subarea process, we discussed the fact that once employment zones go to residential, they never become employment again, and it can harm our economic base and small businesses. At the same time, I do think that perhaps in 2020, we did not realize the full scope of office buildings going away and the need for housing to replace that. So I would put a question out there. If we were using our equity lens to figure this out, how would our equity lens help us make this decision on the housing side and on the employment side? Thank you.
Okay, other commissioners? So I have to say I'm somewhat concerned. Canyon Park area is key to meeting the city's employment goals going forward. And I wonder what distinguishes this parcel from every other parcel within Canyon Park, and why, if this were approved, the entire plan couldn't be upended. And what would be the basis for approving this and then rejecting any future proposals? And then how do we maintain the ability to meet the employment goals? So that's kind of the dilemma that I see here. Commissioner Robson?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm going with you, Chair Kiernan, on this, especially because we are going to be updating it relatively soon. And it's going to take a lot of staff resources, is my understanding, to rezone this whole lot. And we have other focuses and things that we need to get done. It can upend a whole plan that's really crucial. It's a cornerstone to our meeting our state goals. And then to try to revise that entire plan based on one section not only seems a waste of resources, but almost, I didn't even think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't even think we could legally do that. Can we rezone specific lots? Wasn't that the Sunrise issue?
Spot zoning?
Yeah. Can you do, is this like extending it for one plot? Is that, what's the difference between spot zoning and this?
A site-specific rezone requested by an applicant can go through an amendment request.
Okay.
I mean, there's two steps to it. It's comprehensive plan designation, step one.
Okay.
And then you have to then change the zoning, so that's step two.
Okay.
So the zoning has to align with your comprehensive plan.
Right. Okay. Okay, I see. So this wouldn't be spot zoning.
It's incorporating within, an adjacent zone, and that's kind of that point of
Okay.
that wetland
Okay.
to the south is, while it is zoned residential activity center,
Got it.
mixed use
Right.
employment, it's a bit of a misnomer in that it's a wetland in the shoreline jurisdiction that does not
Right.
allow for
Okay.
residential, mixed use, employment, any of the uses that are there. It allows for it, but you couldn't actually do it. 'Cause you have to get through that other gate of the Shoreline Master Program.
So this is legal through a technicality, kind of, because that's where the adjacency occurs. Is that okay? Yeah. So just from what staff is saying, and the fact that all of this need in particular is based on a what if this happens. I defer to staff on this. I don't think that it's a necessary amendment to make this time.
And if I can, we will be bringing the work plan to the joint Planning Commission City Council meeting on the 18th to discuss what's on the 5-year work plan for consideration with code updates, plan projects, kind of where they would land between now and 2029. And with docket requests being kind of an ongoing thing, they're always on there, potentially, depending on what's picked up or not.
So I see Commissioner Lever, but one comment. So what I think I heard you say is that whether the commission votes in favor or opposes this, the council will still hear about it, correct?
That's correct. Council makes a final decision on any private docket amendment request item.
So it will go forward. We're just advising at this point. Correct. Okay, Commissioner Lever?
I think just the concern that I have about making the recommendations without really understanding like the who loses in the different scenarios is what I keep on struggling with. So I definitely trusting the staff's advice and supporting the recommendation, knowing that there's a methodology behind it, and then there is a total understanding of what the city needs to move forward with the different plans that we have. However, I really can't stress this enough that when it comes to decision making, oftentimes we don't have all the information. We're not experts in this particular space, so it would be super helpful for us to understand like the scenarios that we are being asked to kind of evaluate, and then the impact of the decision, even though we know that we're sort of like guessing over here, because it's definitely something that I continue to see as a gap in terms of decision making. So I definitely want to support the staff with the recommendation, but I cautious us with not having a method that can be transparent, that help us understand the impact, the negative and the positive, and how we mitigate that negative impact on our decision making. Thank you.
Commissioner Sills?
Commissioner Sills, I think in a lot of the public comment we've heard both in person and in writing, they've really done a good job of citing all of the sections of the comprehensive plan where we talk about promoting affordable housing close to employment, shopping and services. And, we want these areas to be centers of activity. And I am just concerned about the idea that this could end up without a tenant and just sit there, and then it's like wasted space. So I hear all the concerns about how possible ripple effects and everything, but I think this is really an opportunity here. So I just, again, I'm not convinced that it's a reason to turn this away. And I know that a lot of cities are talking about this very thing, or they already have vacant lots where they're desperate to have them redeveloped, and they probably are trying to figure out how to make that work, even though it doesn't perfectly align with some of the legitimate concerns you brought up. So I would say I'm not in a position to accept the staff's recommendation, because I just think that this really is in line with what we talk about wanting to do and what the comprehensive plan was supposed to help do. And so I realize we have these set zones for a reason, but I think we should be flexible when there is a good case to be made.
Okay, other commissioners? Commissioner Gustafson.
Sarah Gustafson here. To echo Commissioner Sills, I do feel like there is a precedent for being flexible when there's a lot of community benefit to be had. And I feel like we don't know enough about the mix of units, the affordability of the units. I would be curious to know more about that. I mean, in an ideal world, there would be the possibility to rezone it conditionally, as we did for the Drews Amendment, where there was considered to be great enough community benefit that an adjacent parcel could be zoned for a higher density residential. Food for thought.
So my understanding is that there is not, in fact, a proposal here, but rather a request to have the flexibility to make a proposal to change it. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
there's no development application in to redevelop it or modify the existing structure, just the option to do it, yeah.
Yes, okay. I hear the commission is conflicted. And again, this will move forward for council consideration regardless of our position. But I think given what I'm hearing in the discussion, well, first of all, I'll ask, is there, how do we want to do this? I'll ask for a motion to either approve or deny it, and whoever makes the motion can have that choice, and then we would take a vote on that and move it forward. I think that's procedurally the way we should go. So is there a motion on this proposal? Well, it's either a motion to recommend or a motion to deny. So would someone like to choose? Commissioner Sills.
Commissioner Sills, I move to, I'm sorry. Okay. Are we, are we moving to approve the recommendation or a move to, because language is a little confusing. Sorry.
Okay. So the staff has made a recommendation to deny. I think
Right.
to be clear, and I hope I'm being clear in my thought process, the motion would be either to support the staff recommendation or to oppose the staff recommendation. So a motion to oppose the staff recommendation would be in favor of the proposal. Does that make sense?
Right. Okay.
This is like one of those initiatives on the ballot where voting no means yes.
I move to oppose the staff recommendation. Commissioner Sills.
So you're moving to oppose the staff recommendation, which would have the effect of the commission being in favor of the proposed amendment. Correct?
Commissioner Sills, correct. Yes.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? Commissioner Gustafson.
Sarah Gustafson here. I would like to second that motion and perhaps propose an amendment, but I'll stick with the second for now.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion around that? Commissioner Gustafson, I heard you would like to discuss and perhaps amend.
Yes, thank you, Chair Kieran. Sarah Gustafson here. I would like to emphasize what Commissioner Lever mentioned is that I don't really feel like we have enough information to either approve or deny. So my suggestion might be to somehow table this and deny the staff recommendation, but with simply the goal of getting more information to make a more transparent decision.
Okay, so the recommendation is to oppose the staff the amendment to the motion is to oppose the staff recommendation while requesting it be tabled for further investigation and discussion. Is that a fair summary? Okay, I got visual.
Yes, Kieran, thank you so much for your wordsmithing.
I'm struggling here. Commissioner Lever.
Hi, and I second that motion with the amendment. I'm definitely interested in learning more about the decision that we're making here, with an emphasis on the impact and knowing that we have a lot of unknowns, really understanding the current state of the economy and the housing needs. And I would like to learn more about the method behind the decision making of the staff. So.
Okay. So the amendment, so parliamentarily, do we need a vote on amending the motion? Yeah. So there's been a motion to amend the motion. Is there a second on that? And I think I heard Commissioner Lever approve it. So is that a second to that change?
So I approve the decision made with the amendment of I want to learn more, so can we table it and come back to it?
Okay, so you second the amendment. Any further discussion around that? So we have before us a motion to oppose the staff recommendation subject to tabling this item and receiving additional discussion and information. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right, any further discussion? Commissioner Gustafson.
Sarah Gustafson here. Even though I believe I will support the motion, before I make a vote, I would love to hear from the staff to see what kind of cost this would cause to table the motion, to see if it would be prohibitive or if it would not pose too much of a hurdle.
And if I could add on to what Commissioner Gustafson said, hopefully consistent with what she said, are there any schedule considerations as well?
And this may be where the conversation with the city council can elaborate on schedule impacts and what including a docket item within our work program would do. So yes, there would be impacts to the docket as far as right now with the work plan as of now with climate action plan, housing action plan, urban forestry master plan, downtown, Subarea. Those 4 major plan projects are underway, taking up a significant amount of staff time. There are a number of other priorities that have already been established. We'll go into that detail with City Council and yourselves on the 18th, just so that you're clear of where everything lands, what deadlines we're trying to achieve at various points throughout this year, and then fitting this in as far as costs. You know, there's obviously the time commitment, but the costs we wouldn't be able to evaluate because we'd need to kind of go back into the comprehensive plan, which established the residential housing target goals throughout the city, and created that capacity within all of the residential zones. Evaluate what this would do to those. Would that require any adjustment with what those future land use map designations, how that would work, as well as coordinate with transportation on what's the difference between employment low and mixed use for a residential project that could support how many units. So we'd have to look at that lot for what its potential development would be and what that would mean for intersections, utilities, water, sewer, those things. So it expands into a broader exercise throughout the comprehensive plan, that we kind of fine-tuned everything at the end of last year. So it's not a small endeavor, just to take that step, and that's just the first piece. That's just the comprehensive plan portion of it, and then once that's completed, it shifts into a zoning amendment. So they're not simultaneous; they are separate requests.
Are there specific aspects of that additional workload that you could request the applicant to do in order to move this forward? Is that reasonable, or?
I mean, the amendment request process is required by the city to go forward and complete. I'm not sure if how we would approach evaluations or studies, and what could be offloaded. We track the time spent on these as far as how they're billed out. So our time is assessed and paid out hourly or charged out hourly to the applicant as far as how our current fee structure works.
I didn't quite hear from you a concern about the financial resources to do this. What I heard was a concern about the staff resources, and I'm wondering whether the particular workload could be done, or an element of it, reducing the staff impact.
Right, and that's something that we'd want to have that conversation with City Council to evaluate what their priorities are. If this rises to the level of focus, which would then adjust something else on their list.
I'm writing, I hope, a clearer representation. Commissioner Sills.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that on things are moving and council probably need to make their ultimate decision. I think really what I think is important here is we've been pushing so much to allow housing, and this is literally a proposal to allow to build housing. They're asking for that, and it's just this is where the rubber hits the road, and our comprehensive plan was meant to stimulate this very thing. And I think if we're oh well, this puzzle piece only fits in this exact spot, we're never going to hit our housing targets. And I realize it has an impact on job targets, and that's meaningful. It has tax implications, and ultimately it causes a ripple effect. But I just think the council can ask smart questions into what that really will materialize into, because again, the chair said, we don't have a full-fleshed proposal, so we don't even know what could materialize. This is just making it possible. So I think we need to be open whenever we can to making multifamily housing possible, given what we know is a huge crisis on our hands. Having space for jobs doesn't seem to be a huge crisis on our hands. So I just think we should be open to that and really demonstrate our values here with some of these things.
Okay, other discussion? Okay, I tried to reword what I heard. So I'm suggesting what I heard was the motion supports the proposed amendment subject to further information and discussion prior to a final decision. Is it a fair representation? And I think, Commissioner Sills, you made the amendment, so I'll look to you whether that's a fair rewording of your amendment.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, I got lost.
Sure. So the what you're suggesting, the commission vote to support the proposed amendment, subject to further information and discussion prior to a final decision. And if it's not, please,
I think that's right, but I think, I mean, the further discussion could happen at the council level, in my opinion, but I don't know if that's what I don't think that's what the others were saying.
Other comments? I'd welcome rewording that. I tried to eliminate the double negative. Commissioner Robson.
Thank you. I mean, it still isn't clear. I mean, I think it's just really hard to word because it isn't that we support anything. It's that we want more information and we think that this should be more rounded out. And I'm not even sure we know where that information should be coming from. I mean, are we asking staff to look into something? Because there's no proposal. So what, I guess I'm not really sure because it's so amorphous. Right now, I mean, I understand that they want us to rezone, but we don't know for what. And it's still being used as an office building. There are no plans to change that. And so it's all very amorphous. And so when we're asking for information, I think we need to be either more specific about what information we're looking for, or we just vote to say, I mean, we're not supportive of it. At least that's what I was hearing, is that the idea sounds good, but we're not, I mean, we'll support it based on further information. Well, that's not really, we need the information before we support it. So I think that's where my hang up is with it. It's just a little confusing and very vague. But maybe I'm getting a little touchy.
Well, and I'll look to staff to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but there is a request before us to either support or deny an amendment to the existing plan to allow this change. Is that a fair statement?
To the existing plan, to the existing comprehensive plan?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
So we're being asked to take a position in either supporting or denying, or I suppose we could deadlock.
Yeah, I think.
But
Commissioners, can I say something?
oh, certainly, please do, Commissioner Sills.
I would push back on that a little bit. It's pretty clear the application says the critical effect of this redesignation would be to legalize multifamily housing on the property, which is currently limited exclusively to non-residential uses. So staff is saying, like, they think we should deny this proposed amendment to rezone. I realize we don't have a project in front of us, but it is talking about the designation, the zoning designation. So the question at hand is, do we want to keep it as the employment low, or do we want to move it to mixed use employment that allows for multifamily housing? So I realize we don't have all the details, but like really if we had all the details, I don't know, like, and I don't think we need to be making these decisions based on like number of units or anything like that. Like that will all come later. There are other processes that we know they go through for that, permitting, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this is really just looking at the zoning and whether or not we want to be open to changing the zoning, again, to legalize this as an option. It's not saying it will necessarily happen, but I think they make a compelling case that like, this is where the demand is, and it's very possible there could not be demand for the space in how it is currently zoned.
And in that case, we would just say that we support.
Commissioner Robson, microphone.
And in that case, if that's what Commissioner Sills is suggesting, and if the rest of the commissioners agree with that, that that would be supporting. I want to just come out, and I'm not arguing against the commissioner's positions. I was earlier just arguing against the wording, that it was vague. There, our hang-up was, if we want more information, how do we incorporate that into our verbiage? If it's just, as Commissioner Sills suggests, that she supports the amendment, then I think we just would say that we support the amendment and send that to City Council. But I was also hearing that there was a request for additional information. And so perhaps the other commissioners who want that information can speak to what specifically they're looking for. And because that would help us form a suggestion for council.
Yes, so what I heard was an initial motion to support the proposed amendment, and then an amendment to the motion, making it be subject to, tabling it, and subject to additional information and discussion. That's what I heard said. Now, we can certainly, if someone wants to change the wording, I'd welcome that. But again, where I think we are in the process, the parliamentary process in moving this forward, is a motion to support it with an amendment making that motion subject to further discussion and additional information. Commissioner Lever.
So I was one of the commissioners who suggested additional information was needed to understand what is it that we're approving. Knowing that we don't have a proposal and really not being able to understand what are going to be the gains and the things that we're going to be losing without knowing what will take over, the one thing that it is clear to me is what we will lose shall this tenant leaves. Like if Pfizer leaves the place, then trying to get another tenant within the current use of something that appears to be becoming more obsolete nowadays when it comes to those kind of like business places. That's the one thing that I just kind of I wonder taking the risk of changing a zone that will create possibilities, if it is worth taking that risk given what we're going to potentially lose. Because the losing is we lose a tenant and then we have a vacant building. And then that is a fact. But is that going to happen? We don't know. But if it does happen, then it appears that we have other examples of what may happen to that particular building. And just I kind of almost wonder more like this particular developer who's coming forward, if this is something that's happening regionally. Like when I think about what information we're looking for, is like, how is the market moving? Like from a regional perspective, we know that there are market trends. We know that we have a housing crisis. So it's not necessarily coming up with specific numbers, but coming up with a scenario based on the regional trends that we're seeing. So I know I wasn't completely specific, but really understanding regional trends helps me understand whether or not we are the decision-making process is better from where I sit, knowing that there's so many things that we don't know. And I am also sort of concerned with completely disregarding the staff's recommendations, because I'm sure there's all this time and analysis that went behind it. And when we don't even know what is it that I want to approve it or deny it, is really, I don't even want to insult per se all the work that goes behind it. So I definitely want to be mindful of that. And at the same time, sometimes we do get so caught up with kind of like the little box that we're in. And then, I always think about zoning as being kind of like an equity component. So if we are trying to create more opportunities, I can see how this is a way for us to do it where we get out of the box. So hopefully I answer or provided more information on what I meant by additional information. So more scenarios based on regional trends. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jones.
Chair, can you hear me better now? I changed speakers.
Much better. Very, very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, and I really appreciate the conversation, but I just wanted to add that I am hesitant. I am hesitant to trust that one developer can provide me with the information about market trends. And for me to support this, for me to support the amendment to the zoning, or to deny the staff recommendation, I would need more information from staff as to what market trends are, because what we know we will lose, we know what the implications are based on what staff has already analyzed, based on the inconsistency with the adjacent property. And so I am like Commissioner Lever. I want to trust the staff analysis on this unless there's additional information provided by the staff about other future trends.
Okay, so we have before us a motion to support the proposed amendment, and then we have a amendment on the table to modify that motion to make it subject to additional information and discussion prior to a final decision. Does everyone feel that's a fair representation? Because I think we should call for a vote if it is. All right, then procedurally, I think what we do, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think we vote on the amendment to the motion first and then the motion. You need a pocket Robert's rules. All right, so I'll ask for a vote on the commissioners on the amendment to the motion. And given I sense there may not be unanimity, I'm going to ask individually. So Commissioner Jones?
No.
Okay, so no on the request for additional information.
That's correct. No on the proposed amendment.
Okay, no on the proposed amendment. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
That's fine. Commissioner Lever? Commissioner Lever? Are you frozen? I think she might be frozen. Oh, there you are. You moved.
I'm back. So I have apologies, but all the language is really like, I'm so lost. I just want to say I am with Commissioner Jones. So whatever Commissioner Jones said, that is what that's what I am.
Okay.
Whatever that motion is, just to be clear.
Okay. So just to be clear, if we oppose the amendment to the motion, we will then vote on the motion to the amendment itself, allowing the developer's request. Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no on the amendment to the motion. All right, Commissioner Robson.
I'm not sure what we're voting on, but I think, okay, should we add an amendment that we need more time? No, I don't think we should add an amendment that we need more time.
Okay. Commissioner Sills?
No.
No? Okay, Commissioner Gustafson?
Hi, Sarah Gustafson here.
It's
This is a
challenging.
hard one. It doesn't really matter which way I vote, right?
Yes, it does.
At this point.
We'd like it on the record, or you could abstain.
I think I would abstain. I think I'm with Commissioner Sills. That's all I want to say. So
Okay.
whichever way she goes, I go.
All right, so that brings us to the underlying motion. The amendment to the initial motion has not passed, and I'll vote no on that as well, just to move us forward. So then we have before us a motion to support the applicant's proposed amendment, which would be not what the staff recommended, but recommending that it go forward. And I'll again go through a roll call on that. Commissioner Jones?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Lever?
So glad Commissioner Jones went first because I'm going to say no.
Okay. Commissioner Robson?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Sills?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Gustafson.
Yes.
Okay. I should have been keeping time. There were 2 yeses. I'm going to vote no. I oppose the proposed amendment. So I think the amendment fails. It will go forward to council. I think staff can communicate to council that the commission struggled mightily with this and would welcome more information. But as it's before us, we voted down the motion to approve the proposed amendment, which makes us consistent with the staff's recommendation. Is that fair representation? Thank you all for struggling through this. Challenging from a parliamentary standpoint. All right.
You did a great job, Chair.
I have my 8 steps to a motion that I refer to. All right, so with that, thank you for the proposal. It generated a lot of discussion, and I think, as you can see, the commission did struggle mightily. So moving on to our next item, it is the sign code amendment project.
So thank you so much for the conversation on the amendment proposal, but I just want to state that we are not requesting a motion on the sign code amendment project. It is only informational. So.
As chair, I thank you for that.
Yes, and it's just a few slides. So, okay, so we have sign code, and we are going to be updating it this year in 2 different phases. The first phase will be in Q1, Q2, and we are updating it only to ensure compliance with recent Supreme Court rulings. The first one is that we are removing any content-based distinctions, and the second one is we are eliminating on-premise versus off-premise sign distinctions. So this is very straightforward because we are just ensuring compliance with recent legislation. In the second phase, in Q3, Q4, we will be modernizing and improving the sign code to align with the 2024 Imagine Bothell Comprehensive Plan, and we'll be doing a more comprehensive engagement effort during that phase as well. So questions for discussion. Are there any concerns about removing content-based distinctions or on-premise versus off-premise sign distinction? Again, we are just ensuring that this is aligned with recent legislation.
Commissioners, questions, comments, discussion? So my understanding is you're doing this to comply with court rulings, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So I'm not sure concerns inconsistent with a court ruling are comments, but I'm not sure we can act on those. But off-premises signs, is that referring to signs in the right-of-way, out in the roadway, or?
Yes.
Okay. Questions or comments? Commissioner Robson.
Just out of curiosity, what's content-based distinctions?
Content-based would be, if you have to read the sign to know what type of sign it is, that is a content-based issue. So we will look to basically strip that out, and so we can regulate, size, location, duration of a sign, the structural components of it, but we can't regulate what it says, and that's where that Reed v. Gilbert court case got us to. Got them to. So it's a pretty discrete cleanup. The on-premise versus off-premise, there'll be a lot more kind of work within the sign code, but that'll set us up nicely for that phase 2 work.
Other commissioners? A concern that I have about the off-premise signs, and I'm not sure how this fits into it, but when they're in the roadway right-of-way, and the city then goes to maintain that right-of-way, the mowers either chop them up and they become litter, or the city employee has to go around the sign or remove the sign. So I don't know how you address that.
You got it. So when they're in the right of way, there's a generally perceived acceptable location for them to be in the right of way. They can't be blocking a sidewalk. They can't be blocking sight distance at an intersection. They can't be placed in a median. That's mainly because of safety reasons. You know, someone either locating it or going to remove it, they could fall into traffic, and so. But anything along the side of the roadway, there are acceptable locations that a sign can be placed. Short of a city saying we don't allow any off-premise signs, but that gets a little tricky. So we're working closely with legal on this one to make sure that the amendments that will come before you and then go to council align and check all the boxes for that. There are definitely those considerations with streets maintenance that are doing that work. If it is an area maintained by the city, different when it's maintained by the adjacent property owner. They likely put the sign in, and so they're going to move it out of the way when they mow. So there are some limitations that we can install. There'll be a lot of education as part of this, with not only businesses that may have off-premise signs, but reaching out to anyone running for a political office, having them on a list of distribution. Hey, just want to make sure you know, here's where signs can and can't be located. Reach out if you have any questions. That type of work goes a long way to make sure that we're very clear with that.
Well, again, maybe to restate, hopefully maybe a little more articulately, the concern I have is how signs on shoulders where vegetation maintenance is required impact the ability of the city to do that maintenance. And I'll just leave that as a comment, not necessarily needing a response at this point. Other commissioner comments or questions? Seeing none, I think you can be done. So thank you for your presentation. Welcome to the commission, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. So that concludes our study session for this evening. Next item on the agenda is reports from members. Members have anything you'd like to bring to the attention of the commission? Looking out. Seeing none. Reports from staff. Anything for us?
Only reports would be the next upcoming meeting. So like I said, there is a joint City Council Planning Commission study session at the February 18th City Council meeting. The final agenda on that will be published. Usually it's the Friday before, at least by the Friday before. So you'll kind of see where that study session will land. At this point, the agenda looks like we'll get into that study session pretty quickly through that with that meeting, but keep an eye on that if as far as when to make it hereby, and then just the next thing is the next regular meeting of the Planning Commission on February 19th. Like Eric mentioned and Megan as well, the engagement plan discussion for the downtown sub-area will take place that evening, and we have an initial code update project to bring before you that pulls in some of those items that were pushed off to a phase 2 for development regulations from the comprehensive plan work. So a little bit more sort of high level engagement plan discussion, and then a little bit more detailed into what code amendment work could bring. So that'll be February 19th. So that's it.
All right, thank you. So there being no further business, is there a motion to adjourn? Commissioner Gustafson.
Commissioner Gustafson here. I move to adjourn. Thank you.
All right. Second?
Commissioner Lever, I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right. So unanimous vote to adjourn. Meeting is adjourned at 8:34 p.m. As Deputy Director Gates said, our next meetings will be the joint meeting with Council on February 18th and our regular February 19th meeting. Thank you all, and thanks for bearing through some procedural trudging. Good night, all.